I'm Tim Malloy with the Civic Association, and this is Palm Beach TV. The infection rate for COVID-19 is the lowest that it's been in Palm Beach County since June. That's good news, but affects virtually nothing as far as opening of restaurants and bars and schools and all these things that we're weighing in the county as well as in the town of Palm Beach. In the town of Palm Beach, there have been 108 people who have contracted the virus. We've learned that one more person has passed away, so 5 of our residents have died because of the coronavirus. Now, we have an app for everything, to make a restaurant reservation, to check your traffic. What if there was an app that could knock down the coronavirus or at least help? Wendy Rutledge has more on that.
We all know that contact tracing is a process to help slow down the spread of COVID-19. Well, now the County of Palm Beach is asking all of us to voluntarily download a contact tracing app on our phone.
It's called Combat COVID, a free application we are all being asked by Palm Beach County to download onto our phones. Judy Goodman, a healthcare attorney who is currently the chair of the Civic Association's Healthcare Committee, explains how it works when one person who is tested positive and uploaded that into the app passes another person who also has the app on their phone.
It will enable you to be alerted that you have passed someone that was positive and would therefore alert you it would be a good idea to go get tested.
The Combat COVID app does not use GPS tracking, but rather proximity detection, but only to those people who also have uploaded the app. This is supposed to provide more privacy protection for users as opposed to apps that are mandatory in more totalitarian countries like China, which are based on GPS and are required by every citizen to use. So if it's not required here, will it work?
Your phone tells you, oh, you just passed by someone within 6 to 13 feet that was positive. Maybe it's a good idea to go get tested yourself. That's another volunteer situation. So,
Judy, you sound skeptical.
I'm skeptical because that's a lot of volunteerism for people to have to do.
To be highly effective, this app would have to be downloaded by 60 to 70% of all county residents, something Goodman predicts will never happen. Still, she sees promise for its use within a small, tight-knit community.
If you had a school and a classroom and everybody had it downloaded in the classroom and your kids went to school and they were able to connect with a kid that was in fact positive, then you could probably supplement contact tracing.
Meaning those in the school would take it upon themselves to notify everyone involved that a student, teacher, or staff tested positive.
We are now in the peak of the hurricane season, and there are 2 tropical systems worth watching right now in the Atlantic Basin.
One in particular has the potential to develop into a Category 1 or 2 hurricane. Storms right now are spinning off the African coast with assembly line frequency. One after the other, it is the peak of the season. The one we have to keep our eyes on, if it avoids landfall on mountainous islands, could hit the record warm waters of the southern Bahamas and develop into a hurricane. If so, it would be called Hurricane Laura. Florida is clearly in the cone for potential landfall. Again, we say potential. Working with our friends over at News Channel 5, NBC, we'll track this system, and if it appears to be a threat to us, we'll put their meteorologists' broadcast on palmbeachcivic.org real time, so wherever you are in the world, you can see what is coming our way here in Palm Beach. We will also cover the town of Palm Beach with our cameras on Palm Beach TV.
As the 12th and 13th systems of this early season churn our way in the Atlantic, we talked to one of the world's leading experts on global warming and rising waters, something that could affect Florida dramatically in the coming years. Let's talk to him.
Rutgers University's Dr. Oscar Schofield has made more than a dozen research trips to Antarctica, where the glaring ice melt is setting off alarms. As one of our Civic Association global speakers, he explained the perils posed by the global warming effects, which are now knocking right on our door here in the state of Florida.
When ice collapses in Antarctica, it's what raises sea level up here in the northern hemisphere. When the Greenland ice sheet, if it collapses, it raises sea level in the southern hemisphere. And so the Thwaites ice sheet which we know will collapse, and it might take a really long time, the estimate is anywhere from 2 to 3 feet of sea level rise.
Since his visit, the experts have ratcheted up the number of hurricanes likely this season and tropical storms, and nature has started to deliver. I spoke to Dr. Schofield by Zoom.
We are looking at three storms, one which has potential to hit Florida right now. Not surprising at this point to you. This is a pretty accelerated season.
This is a very busy season. The ocean's pretty hot, and the prevailing winds in the atmosphere seems to be super conducive. The fact that we've already had so many named storms so early is just evidence that it's extremely active. Yeah.
If we have a very heavy season here, I mean, do you think, a legitimate chance of having real problems with flooding, certainly out of the lake more than out of the ocean?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's always sort of scary about these large storms. It's not only how strong are they when they hit the shore, but also their direction. So if we go back to Katrina, what flooded New Orleans was Katrina went behind the city and flooded Lake Pontchartrain into New Orleans. When Sandy hit New Jersey, it essentially pushed all the inner waterways into the neighborhoods. And so the concern is always not only when the storm comes, how strong it is, but the direction it approaches, and is it coming at a high tide?
And with the record-setting ocean temperatures right now in the 80s, here's a frightening piece of information.
And the thing about water, if you think about it, it holds about 1,000 times more heat than air does. So when you have a big body of hot water, it's holding a huge amount of heat. And one of the warmest places you see in the world's oceans is sort of right around the Caribbean, and then up to the US and the Gulf. And so when these storms come across, they reach this very hot water, and that's essentially gasoline for the storm. It's the fuel.
Never in any of our lifetimes has the rising water issue been so acute. Acute to the point where there are credible people now suggesting dikes being built around major cities, and certainly in Miami. As you know, if you live in town, or even if you don't, there's very little free parking in the town of Palm Beach. Well, there's about to be less. Here's Wendy Rutledge with that.
There is no more free day at the beach at one of the town's hottest spots.
Right now, beachgoers can nab a free parking spot along the 100 block of Sunrise and around the corner on North County Road and walk right on up to the beach. It's a great deal for beachgoers, not so much for owners of the elegant beachfront mansions along North Ocean Boulevard. Some of these residents are fed up with what they describe as poor behavior by beach patrons and their unleashed dogs. In response to multiple complaints, the Palm Beach Town Council has authorized metered parking along Sunrise and North County Road between Wells Road and Route Trail at a rate of $3 an hour. The town will set aside 25 spots for placard parking.
It's a glaring local indicator of an economy crippled by the pandemic. Neiman Marcus, 73 employees losing their jobs in Palm Beach as it closes down. The retail giant has been crippled by the COVID-19 virus. On September 12th, the Worth Avenue fixture will close its doors. On the same day, Neiman Marcus in Fort Lauderdale will do the same. The big store has for more than 2 decades been an imposing fixture on the ocean block of Worth Avenue. And another sad closure for a lot of people who like to dine out. Chez Jean Pierre, a legendary French bistro in town on North County, is shuttering its doors. They told staff on Monday that that was the case, and it is all over for Chez Jean Pierre. 29 years it has been in operation, a family-run operation, and beloved by so many. Over these many difficult months, we've done a series of reports on local organizations trying to help stem the tide of the coronavirus. Wendy Rutledge has a report on one such organization, which is marrying altruism with high technology.
At a recent Palm Beach Town Council meeting, Councilman Lou Crampton, who happens to be a trustee here at the Science Museum, or the Science Center as it's now called, he mentioned a project that's going on here that is very interesting, involving 3D printing and PPE.
Stack them on there. got your face shield. Sure. Just like that.
Face shields, the PPE needed so desperately in healthcare settings at the early stages of the coronavirus pandemic, were made right here in small but important quantities by the folks at the South Florida Science Center.
We were hearing that the medical community was in need of these 3D printed face shields that would kind of give them an extra layer of protection when dealing with patients who could have COVID.
Staff fired up these microwave oven-sized 3D printers to help meet the need for PPE. I, for one, had never seen a 3D printer, so Chris gave us a look at the process in various stages.
Talk to us about where it starts and where it goes.
So they all eventually end up with the same finished product. When we were running them, we just set them all to print at the same time, and they all finished roughly at the same time. This one you can see is at the completed stage of printing. It's printed all 4 stacks.
Those stacks become the frame on which the plastic shield is snapped into place. The shield itself not produced by these 3D printers, but rather purchased and shaped to size. Creating these plastic frames is a 12-hour process per batch, and it starts with the raw material, the plastic filament.
There's a little metal tip right there called the extruder, and it gets really hot and it melts this plastic and it squeezes it out in a really thin little line. And you can see the difference in the thickness between what it squeezes out and what the filament is going in, and it lays them down one layer at a time.
The finished product is packaged in a sanitized plastic bag with frame, elastic band, clip, and shield inside. These packets were donated by the South Florida Science Center to West Palm Beach Police and Fire Departments, Found Care, the Palm Beach County Food Bank, to name a few. Not a bad use of their time and resources during the period the Science Center was forced to close due to the virus. For the Palm Beach Civic Association, I'm Wendy Rutledge reporting.
As mentioned earlier in the broadcast, there are concerns that potentially by late weekend we could be looking at a tropical storm or even a hurricane here. Nothing guaranteed at all, but there is a concern rising in the meteorological community. As well with our lifeguards, who we talk to at the end of every newscast, at the end of every week. What happens when they get the signal that this is going to get possibly ugly? Well, protection of the beachgoers, obviously, and citizens is paramount. Here's a quick overview.
Obviously, we'll monitor the storm based on severity and possible direction. If we were to get any kind of close calls, such as landfall or anything like that, we would take into action some preparations, such as moving the towers, some of our signage throughout the beach to make sure we don't have any projectiles or anything like that, to just make sure everything's safe and secure for the pending storms.
At what point do you say, okay, beach is closed, that's it?
Like I said, eventually that would depend on severity and the proximity of the storm itself. So based on that, we'd make a determination whether to close the beaches typically anywhere between 24 to 48 hours ahead of time, just to make sure everything's safe, secure, and keep the public as safe as possible.
And do you have concerns about erosion here now that we have all the new sand and everything?
We did do the recent renourishment. The last little storm that we had, Isaias, did give us a little bit of erosion, but we've actually gotten a lot of that sand pushed back up through a little bit of wave action over the last couple weeks.
Right.
So depending again on severity and proximity of the storm, we could see some large swell waves coming in, and which would cause some erosion and things like that. So it'll all be dependent on that.
You've been around for a long time, as I have. The water is warmer, the storms are more frequent. Pretty interesting, huh?
Yep. Oh yeah, that hotter the water, the more they come in, the stronger they get.
I'm Tim Malloy with the Civic Association, Palm Beach TV, where membership matters. If you are a member, we hope you'll stick with us, rejoin. If you're not, we'd love to have you join us. I'll leave you today with a summer storm blowing in across the island earlier in the week. Pretty remarkable pictures. Stay safe. We'll see you soon.